Chapter 8. A Heart Betrayed. I had been the lead in several of our school plays, but I didn't think I was a good enough actor to keep Mommy and Daddy from seeing how sad I was that night. I was pale and tired looking, no matter how I tried to smile or how I tried to make my voice sound happy. Carrie didn't ask me any questions about my visit to Grandma Olivia's house. Annie hadn't even told Mommy that Raymond was waiting for me at the end of the school day. Mommy just assumed I had something to do after school and had walked home myself. Neither she nor Daddy heard or saw Raymond drive up to the house in the Rolls Royce. May was the only one who signed the questions, wondering where I'd gone after school and what I'd done, and why I looked so sad. I signed back quickly, just telling her I was busy with schoolwork. Daddy didn't notice, and Mommy was too preoccupied with serving dinner, proud of the new recipe for the meatloaf she had found in the old Providencetown newspaper. Carrie kept his head bowed, his eyes at his plate, throughout most of the meal. It was Daddy's turn to read the Bible, and while he did, I kept my gaze locked on Carrie. He couldn't even look at me. Whenever he accidentally did, he shifted his eyes guiltily away. He was the first to leave the table, claiming he had to better get upstairs to do studying. Daddy was happy to hear that he didn't question his quick retreat. While I helped Mommy with the dishes, she talked enough for both of us, planning things for the summer, including a trip to Boston. Finally, she noticed me standing there quietly beside her and reminded me that I should go up and study too. I was grateful for the escape, but once again it was hard, if not impossible, for me to focus on my schoolwork. My eyes drifted constantly from the pages of my books and papers, and my attention settled on the drawer where I'd hidden Robert's letters, and my thoughts wrapped themselves around the images of his face and the sound of his voice. Just before her bedtime, May came to spend time with me. I took a break and did some needlework with her while she talked about her friends at school and asked me questions about high school life. Finally, she got tired and went to sleep. I did too. Moments after I turned off my lights and crawled under my blanket, I heard a gentle knock at my door. It was so light, I first thought that it was just pipes rattling in the walls. I listened again, heard it, and rose. When I opened the door, I found Carrie standing in his robe and slippers. "What?" I said quickly. "I tried, but I couldn't fall asleep without talking to you," he said. "I'm not surprised," I replied curtly. I stepped away from the door and returned to my bed and sat on it, my legs folded under me. Carrie entered quietly and closed the door. He stood gazing at the floor for a moment. I turned the lamp on my nightstand. The brightness made him squint. "What is it, Carrie?" I finally asked. "I was just wondering what happened over at Olivia's," he said. "Somehow, Carrie, I think you already know," I said and looked quickly from him to my toes. I always thought I had ugly toes. They were big, but Robert said they were perfect. He claimed everything about me was perfect. How blind love can make someone, I vaguely thought. I'm far from perfect. "What do you mean? I already know," Carrie replied. He gazed at me and I stared back undaunted. Someone told her I had been at the Sea Marina at night alone with Robert. "So? Anybody could have told her, Laura. Anyone could have seen you there. Maybe you told one of your friends at school. Maybe you bragged about it, Teresa," he added quickly. Maybe you told her, Carrie," I said firmly. "I would never. Carrie, for as long as we've been alive, you couldn't lie to me easily, and you're not doing a good job of it now either," I said. "I don't know whether to just cry or scream my loudest at you." He stared. "I might have said something to her," he admitted. Well, you don't know what it's like to be interrogated by her. She called me to her house a few days ago and... Why didn't you tell me, Carrie?" He was silent. "Were you ashamed? Was that it? Ashamed that you betrayed me?" "Yes," he admitted. "Why? What happened?" I asked. "Carrie, you might as well tell me everything and stop these silly games with me. You might have said something." You would know if you said something, Carrie. Okay, I'll tell you what happened. She started with her questions about my taking you up to see Aunt Belinda. She was angry and she bawled me out for not knowing better. She wanted to know why it was so important to see Aunt Belinda. I told her I didn't see her, it was just you. And she got, I don't know, very mean looking. She was really scary, Laura. I've never seen her like that. She told me to sit down and she stood up. She's only up to here, he said, holding his hand about halfway to his chest. But suddenly she looked gigantic to me. She hovered over me and demanded why you went to see Belinda. What did you discuss? What did Belinda tell you? I told her I didn't know. I felt like I was in a police station in those movies. You know, those interrogation room with the bright light on your face. So you told her about my letters, didn't you, Carrie? I asked directly. His eyes shifted to my desk drawer, then back to me. I don't know what Carrie, you can't lie to me, I reminded coldly. I know those letters were read. I had them folded and tied together a certain way. May wouldn't have read them, and Mommy and Daddy wouldn't read them. Who does that leave? Well, I was worried about you. I knew you kept the letters in your drawer. I came in here to talk to you one day, and just as you were putting them away. When you started acting weird, I knew it had something to do with Robert Royce, so I came in here and read just a few. You read my personal letters, I said, shaking my head. It's one thing to suspect it, and another to hear the confession from his lips. I care about you. I don't care about my personal letters. I don't care about any personal letters, he claimed. Then he paused and softened his face. Were they true, Laura? I mean, what he says happened between you and him and his place? I shook my head and looked away. I should have known you'd read them, I muttered. That stuff in those letters, that was girl stuff you went to talk to Belinda about, wasn't it? He asked. No, I said, it was far more than that. We never talked about those kind of things, Laura. We never really talked about sex, but I always thought that you'd be different from the other girls at our school, that you would never. I am not like the other girls at the school. I'm different, Carrie, I insisted, my voice cracking with emotion. That's what I think too, he said, quickly nodding. I think it's all his fault, he said firmly, twisting my words. It's not his fault, I cried, pounding my thighs with my small fists. The sight made Carrie wince. I lowered my voice. It's nobody's fault. I never did anything I didn't want to do. I happen to love Robert, Carrie, and he loves me too. And now you've gone and made things very hard for us. You had no right to do that. I just did what I thought was right for you, Laura. I only wanted to protect you. You had no right, I insisted, furiously shaking my head at him. What did you tell her exactly? I want to know all of it, every ugly detail. I didn't tell her anything exactly. I just told her how funny you were acting and you suddenly wanted to see Aunt Belinda. And you said girl stuff. As soon as I said that, Grandma Olivia pounced. Girl stuff, she demanded. Laura's seeing that boy then. How serious has it gotten, she demanded. And I tried to make it seem like nothing. Honest, I did. But she kept asking, as if I knew you had been alone with him. She was the one who suggested the inn. Now that I think about it, yes, that's what she said. Has she gone to that inn? From the way she was asking me, I thought she was just checking to see if I would be truthful. I told her that you had been with Robert at his place for dinner. She asked if I knew your parents were there. I said I didn't know, but I guess you were right. I'm not a good liar because she asked me again in a sharper voice, and I said maybe his parents were gone. And she was the one who told me what you had done. It was as if she read those letters herself, Laura, I swear, he added, with his hand up, as if he was going to take witness on a stand in a courtroom. And you didn't deny any of it. You let her believe it, I concluded. She took one look at my face and said I didn't have to say another word. My eyes said it all. She's spooky, you know. You know how she is. She's a very unhappy old woman, Carrie. That's what she is, and now she's succeeded in making me unhappy too, I said. And you helped her. Are you satisfied? No, of course not, but Laura, he should have. Carrie looked away. If he loved you like you said, he would have respected you more, and that never would have happened. I don't want to talk about it anymore, Carrie. I'm afraid that anything I say you might get back to Grandma Olivia anyway, I added. It was as if I slapped him hard across the face. He actually jerked to the side, his eyes filled with so much pain. I couldn't look at him. I'm sorry, Laura, but I just did what I did because I love you, he blurted and turned quickly to rush out of the room. I remained sitting there for a long moment, staring at the closet door and hearing Carrie's words echo in my ears. How could I ever explain this to Robert? Who would ever understand the madness of my family? I tried to sleep, but fretted in and out of nightmares, waking with small cries, burying my face in the pillow, then falling asleep again, only to wake before the morning and finally fall into a fitful sleep once again. It was such a deep sleep that when morning came, I didn't hear anyone moving in the house. It was May who finally woke me, shaking my arm. My eyelids fluttered, and I looked at her without understanding why she was there. Then I gazed at the clock and flew out of bed. She followed me, signing questions. Was I sick? Was Carrie sick? He wouldn't say a word to anyone, she claimed. I was fine, I told her. I just overslept. Mommy was at me the moment I appeared. Aren't you feeling well, Laura? You didn't look well last night, now that I think about it. I'm fine, Mommy, just a little tired, I said. I'm sorry I overslept. Your brother's acting strangely too, she complained. Just like the two of you were at May's age and younger. If one of you had a stomachache, the other one too. Remember when you both got the chicken pox not more than a day apart? Yes, Mommy. Maybe it was something in that new recipe, she mused. No, Mommy, there was nothing wrong with the food. You and Daddy and May would be sick. Yeah, that's true. We're just a little tired, I said. It wasn't a lie. I was sure Carrie hadn't slept better than I had. I drank some juice, had some toast and jam, and scooped up my things to join May and Carrie, who were waiting at the door. Daddy had already left for work. Carrie's eyes were full of remorse and sorrow, but I chose not to look at him. I didn't say a word until we started out for school. May was full of curiosity and signed her questions all the way. After we dropped her off, Carrie turned to me. I'm sorry, Laura, he said. I didn't mean to get you in any trouble. Let's not talk about it, Carrie. I'm still trying to come up with a way to explain things to Robert. He nodded and walked a little ahead of me, all the way to school. When we arrived, he quickly went to his locker and left me to talk to Robert alone. Robert took one look at me, and the sweet, happy grin disappeared from his face. What's wrong? You look like you lost your best friend, he half-kidded. I think I did, I said. The first warning bell rang before I could say anything. I knew I didn't have enough time to explain it all. I'll tell you at lunch, I promised. There isn't time now. Robert nodded, his face darkly serious and full of worry. Between every class, he tried to catch up with me so he could find out what was wrong. Are you all right? He asked. You look tired, Laura. I am really tired, I admitted. Your brother's doing a good job of avoiding me today. I caught him looking at me, and when I looked back, he turned away. He's back to muttering and grunting whenever I try to speak to him. What's going on? We'll talk at lunch, I said, and I too hurried away. However, when the lunch hour finally arrived, I approached the cafeteria and heard happy chatter of the students, all full of excitement about the approaching end of the school year and summer vacation. I stopped a few feet from the door. My feet felt frozen to the door. What's the matter with you? Teresa Patterson asked as she came up beside me. You look like you've seen a ghost. I turned to her. A tear escaped from my eye and I shook my head instead of speaking. Laura? I ran back down the corridor and outside, bursting into the afternoon sunshine and letting the tears come more freely, that I was alone. I walked to the old oak tree and plopped down in the shade, hugging my knees, gently rocking back and forth. My shoulders shook as I sobbed. Laura, I heard minutes later. Robert was rushing over the lawn toward me. What happened? Why didn't you come into the cafeteria? I waited and waited until Teresa said she saw you run outside. He knelt beside me. I wiped my tears away and tried to smile. I'm all right, I said. I just wasn't in the mood for all those eyes and inquisitive faces today. Why? Tell me everything, he demanded, and he sat on the grass beside me. Oh, Robert, I started and then sucked my breath. Carrie read the letters you wrote to me, and he went into my room when I wasn't there. I wailed. Uh-oh, Robert moaned. No wonder he's been treating me like someone with a contagious disease today. I'm sorry, Laura, I shouldn't have put any of that in writing. Has he been nasty to you, or... No, it's not just Carrie, I said. I paused and looked around at the slow-moving traffic and the soft cotton clouds lazily crossing the horizon, and the songbirds flitting from tree to tree. The world looked so calm and beautiful that it made knots in my stomach, and the chill in my heart seemed worse. I told Robert about my great-aunt Belinda and how Grandma Olivia had questioned Carrie at length about my visiting Belinda at the rest home. Then I described how Grandma Olivia's interrogation turned into my personal life, and specifically my relationship with him. Before I could go on, Robert sputtered out, You mean Carrie told her what I wrote in those letters? Not exactly, I said, but it had the same result. Robert shook his head amazed. What happened after that? That's when she had her driver here for me yesterday, Robert, I said. Oh, you mean she called you to her home to question you about you and me? Yes. He blew a low whistle through his closed lips. I'm sorry, Laura. I guess I messed things up. I had to tell you how I felt, and you wouldn't talk to me. Don't blame yourself, Robert. Carrie knows he was wrong, I said, grinding the tears out of my eyes and catching my breath. It's just that Grandma Olivia is the head of our family, and she can make things hard for everyone. What does she want? Should I go see her? Maybe... Oh no, Robert, never. Don't ever talk about it, I said. He saw the terror in my eyes and he nodded. Well, what should I do? There's nothing to do at the moment, I said, except what, Laura? Except stay away from each other for a while, at least until things calm down, I added quickly. He stared at me a moment and shook his head. What's a while? A while, I said, shrugging. We've got our finals to think about anyway. You think I care about my finals now? You have to, Robert. You want to go to college. If you did poorly because of me, I would feel 10 times worse. He plucked a blade of grass and put it between his teeth. I'm keeping you from eating lunch, I said, trying to joke. You must be hungry. You're eating grass. He stopped chewing and smiled. Then he shook his head slowly. I don't think you understand how much I love you, Laura. It's easy to say we should keep away from each other for a while, but it's nearly impossible for me to do. I'm going to camp out near your house and hope for a glimpse of you every night. Robert, seeing you in school will be like torture. What am I supposed to do, stay away from you here too? My lips started to tremble, my chin quivering. I'm sorry, he said. I'm doing it again. I'm thinking only of myself and putting you in a difficult position. He stood. All right, I'll try to be cool, as they say. For a while, he added. But Laura Logan, you mark my words. You'll be my wife someday. You'll be the woman I live with forever and ever. And no powerful grandmother, no overprotective brother, no one can stop it from happening. I nodded, pressing my lips together and swallowing the lump in my throat. Robert smiled one last time before turned and walked back into school. His shoulders slumped. His heart was dark and as broken as my own. Each succeeding day without Robert, without his smiles, without hearing his voice, receiving his phone calls was like a day of gloom. The sun might as well have kept it faced behind a wall of storm clouds as far as I was concerned. I did my chores, I studied, I helped May with her work, but I know when I moved about I resembled a zombie, a robot without a heart or soul. When I had time to be alone, I walked off and sat on the beach and watched the waves comb the sand, gently rolling over each other and beckoning. Sometimes I went to the edge of the tide and walked barefoot through the foam. The terns followed me, circling, calling, gazing with curiosity at my sad, forlorn figure alone on the vast sea sand. Often I caught Carrie watching me from afar, afraid to speak or approach, distant, a sad figure himself, looking just as lost. He was struggling within himself to find a way to make me happy, to apologize, to win my forgiveness. I kept telling myself that I had to forgive him, that Grandma Olivia had forced him to talk, but that small voice inside me wondered if Carrie hadn't told Grandma Olivia so he could have me all to himself. Mommy continued to ask questions about my health, and even Daddy began to scrutinize me more closely. I blamed it on my studying. The following weekend, we all went to Grandpa Samuel's birthday celebration. It was an elegant party, a clam bake with 2 bars set up, one at each end of the grounds. There was a large blue and white tent under which tables were set with linen tablecloths. Grandma despised the use of plastic plates and forks, so everyone was served on real china with real silverware. A small army of waiters and waitresses, servers and kitchen helpers were hired to help that evening. There were over 150 guests, all wealthy businessmen, politicians, their families, and of course the best families of Cape Cod. People attended from far away as Boston, Hartford, and Connecticut. A string quartet was set up in the gazebo and played all afternoon, culminating with everyone singing happy birthday to Grandpa Samuel. It was really one of Grandma Olivia's best parties, but I still was in no mood to be happy about anything. Late in the day, she pulled me aside. Apparently, she said, "You are following my advice. That's good, Laura. That's good for everyone," she added. But before I could utter a reply, she called one of her guests and went off, in arm, leaving me feeling a little more empty inside. When I turned, I saw Carrie staring at me. I walked away and started toward the dock. "What did she say?" I heard Carrie ask. "She said she's happy I followed her advice, and it was good for everyone." He shook his head. "I'm sorry, Laura," he said for the 100th time. I folded my arms and looked at the sea. "She has no right to run our lives," he continued. "I can see you're going to get sick from unhappiness," he added in an angry tone. "I won't get sick," I said defiantly. "You're as pale as driftwood," he remarked. "Look," he said, stepping closer, "there's nothing wrong with my being friends with Robert, is there?" "What do you mean?" I asked. "Nothing, except I was teaching him how to sail, wasn't I? So I'll just invite him over to go sailing tomorrow, and he can what, Carrie?" I asked, my heart starting to beat with possibilities. "Go sailing yourselves." "You would do that for me?" "Yeah, I would," he said, looking away. "You'll get into trouble with Grandma Olivia, Carrie." "I'm not afraid of that," he said boldly. Just then the wind picked up and whipped strands of my hair around my face. Someone shouted, and we looked back to see a flower display topple. "Uh-oh, some poor Slav is about to be bawled out for not setting up properly," Carrie said and laughed. "Grandma Olivia might take away his breathing rights." I couldn't help but laugh too. "That's more like it, Laura. Remember when I told you that your smile lights up the day?" He said shyly, breaking off in embarrassment. "Don't worry, I'll call him later, and this time she won't get anything out of me either," he promised. And suddenly the sun did peek from behind the cloud. The warm rays washed over me, making me feel reborn. That night I dared a phone call to Robert. Carrie already called me and invited me. I was going to call you," he said. Carrie's invitation was such a surprise, I didn't know what to make of it. What's going on? Why the change of heart? One day he comes up to me like he's my biggest enemy, and the next, he's so sorry for what he's done. He's trying to make it up to me, to both of us, I said. "Actually, I don't care what his reasons are. I'm going to spend the day with you, and that's all that matters, Laura. You don't know how sick of heart I've been these past few days," he moaned. I do know because I've been the same way, I said. My mother's been asking questions constantly about you. She thinks I did something to drive you away, and she wants to know that if I did, I'm really stupid. She'll let up on me now that she knows I'm going to see you tomorrow, he said with a laugh. It was as if the blood had returned to my body and my heart began beating again. I caught myself smiling crazily, and I knew I was walking around with a glow around my face. I was first up in the morning and started to make breakfast for everyone. Mommy was so happy at my display of energy, she talked a blue streak and helped me set the table. Even Daddy looked more relaxed, amused. The only dark thing he said was that we should keep an eye on the weather. He said the sky had a look it usually took right before it hit with a nor'easter. To me, the sky looked beautiful. Even the clouds gathering on the horizon were welcome to my eyes. The wind was up, but Carrie thought it was perfect for sailing. He spent half the morning with Daddy at the cranberry bog, while I prepared our lunches for the picnic on the beach. I'm glad you're taking some time off, Laura, Mommy remarked. You've been working too hard. There's no sense in getting sick right before your finals. No, Mommy. We're very proud of you, Laura. Everyone in the family's proud of you. Why, just the other day your grandmother came over to me especially to remark how delighted she was to hear about your accomplishments in school. And she had a special surprise for you. And what's that, I wonder? I asked, keeping my eyes on the sandwiches I was wrapping. Well, we're not supposed to tell you, but Daddy said she told him she established a fund in the bank to take care of your entire college needs. That's a lot of money, Laura. It's nice to know your grandparents care that much about you, Mommy added. Money's not the only way to show you care for someone, Mommy, I said. Oh no, but it sure helps, she said with a light laugh. Just think how that takes the worry out of your father's brow, she continued. You know how he's been in his ups and downs with the business. He's not one to harp on bad times, but we've had our share, Mommy assured me. Your Daddy's very happy that Grandma Olivia thinks much of you too. I swallowed away the tightness in my throat. I'm glad, Mommy, I said, and hurried to pack the food in the basket. I had wanted this to be an extra special day. I put my hair up, then down, then up again, and tried on nearly everything in my closet, trying to find the perfect outfit. I finally chose a pair of heather gray shorts and a white tank top and a pair of sneakers with no socks. And just for a happy touch, I wrapped my navy silk scarf around my ponytail, and I felt as light as air and floated up and down the stairs all morning until it was time to go. Robert arrived just after Carrie had returned to the bog. We all met outside. May had a smaller basket cradled in her arms. Well, thanks a lot for inviting me, Robert told Carrie. It looks like the perfect day for this, huh? Carrie studied the weather a moment and nodded cautiously. As long as we come in before late afternoon, the wind's picking up a bit, and it'll be a good ride, he said. But you're the expert now, he added with a note of challenge. Well, I haven't forgotten what I've learned, if that's what you mean. Laura knows enough to be the judge of that, Carrie said. Well, let's get going, I said, impatient and worried that too many words would stir up old wounds. I'll carry that, Robert said, taking the bigger basket from me. We walked down to the beach, Robert and I glancing longingly at each other as Carrie led the way. You want to test me? Robert asked Carrie when we reached the sailboat. Go ahead, ask me anything, he challenged. The only real test is the test the ocean gives, Carrie replied coolly. Robert laughed nervously, his eyes flitting from me to the boat and then to Carrie. Laura, why don't you take May to Logan's Cove while Captain Robert and I bring the sailboat over, Carrie suggested. Okay, be careful, I said to Robert and took May's hand. We had the blanket out and were sitting and organizing our picnic lunch when the sailboat appeared around the bend. Robert was doing all the work. The boat bounced hard on the waves and then straightened and turned toward us, the sea spray shooting up around it as it headed to the shore. "It's wonderful," Robert cried. "Invigorating, much more exciting than the last time, Laura." "I can see that. How do you do, Carrie?" Carrie busied himself with beaching the sailboat and then turned. "Fine," he said. He gazed at the sky. The small dots of clouds had grown fatter, and toward the south we could see larger strands of white. "But I think you two should go out right after lunch, and if it gets too rough, head right back," he said. "Boy, just a little bit of work to get my appetite going," Robert followed. I was too excited to be hungry. Carrie didn't eat that much either. He sat pensive, staring out at the ocean. Robert talked about the sea marina, how successful their first few weekends had been, and how they were close to finally being booked for July. Carrie made a little comment. I never saw him so deep in thought. He looked nervous, too, stealing glances at me, then quickly gazing back at the sea or down at the beach. Finally, he stood. "I think May and I will go looking for seashells while you two do sailing," he said, keeping his eyes on the sky. "Laura," he added and signed to May, who rose quickly to take his hand. The two of them started down the beach. "Well," Robert said with a sigh, "we're finally alone for the first time in a century. At least that's the way it feels to me," he said. "Ready for your maiden voyage with Captain Blood?" he asked, shooting to his feet and reaching for my hand. "My lady?" I laughed, and I let him pull me up. Then I took off my sneakers and threw them in the sailboat. I gazed down at the beach at Carrie and May, who were already some distance away. Carrie looked like he was watching us, then he turned back to help May search for interesting shells. Robert helped me into the sailboat and pushed off, jumping in quickly and taking a hold of the rope. "Let's sail all the way to China," he yelled into the wind. The sea spray felt good on my arms and face. More graceful than I anticipated, Robert took us out and filled the sail with wind. "Not bad, huh? I guess the sea is in my blood after all, thanks to you," he said. I sat with my back against him and screamed at the bouncing we endured until we got further and further out and the water calmed. "The last time I went out with Carrie, I saw another cove," Robert said. "It looked private, too," he added. "Why don't we find it and call it Laura's Cove?" he whispered. He kissed my hair and forehead, and I turned to reach his lips to mine. The sailboat twisted, and we both screamed. "I better keep my mind on business at hand," Robert said. "Just let out the line, Robert, and she won't spill into the sea." "Aye, aye, Captain." We sailed, the wind whipping the sail, the bow cutting into the waves. We were now going at a good clip, and we made the turn around another bend. And the wind died a bit, and the ride became slower, smoother. Robert grew more confident. "This isn't as hard as everyone makes it out to be," he declared. "Don't get too arrogant, Robert," I warned. "It takes a while to become as good a sailor as Carrie. Carrie says the sea doesn't easily forgive mistakes either." "I know, but I do have a flair for it, don't I, Laura?" he asked, fishing for a compliment. "Well, don't I?" Yes, I laughed. We kissed again and sailed on. Finally, I felt relaxed and happy. Perhaps all of our lives will be like this now, I thought. We'll round another bend and find sunshine and happiness. With the wind in my hair and Robert's arms around me as our sailboat sliced through the water, it was easy to believe in fairy tales. Carrie and I had grown up with the faith and magic of the ocean. Who could blame me for wanting Robert to share it as well? Who would ever blame me as much as I would soon blame myself?